This whole day is going to be a delightful kind of change of pace. The clouds are breaking up, the sun's coming out. It's Mother's Day. Houston's first race is tonight, which I can't wait for, of course. And I'm going to talk to you about my favorite STIHL products, the Kombi system. So strap in. What's going on, YouTube? It's a beautiful day here in South Dakota. I hope you guys are having a fantastic one as always. Today I want to talk to you guys about my favorite thing that STIHL offers, their Kombi system. There's a lot of reasons I like this setup, and I feel like a lot of people just kind of overlook it or maybe don't really grasp the concept. So there's a lot to consider, and I'm going to try to simplify it. To begin with, you know, if you're the residential user like myself and all you need is a string trimmer and a leaf blower, then just buy those machines. This is not for you. But this is for that acreage owner, the farmer ranch user. So it really opens up a lot of possibilities for those that are gonna use a lot of different tools. And you can save on a lot of maintenance and money in the long run. So I'm gonna try and simplify as best I can. So we'll start with what the Kombi system really is. Think of it this way, it's a string trimmer engine with a whole bunch of different options that you can do with it. So there's 5 different gas power heads you can get. There's the 56, the 91, the 94, the 111, and the 131. They make 2 in their battery lineup. It uses STIHL's AP battery, the 130R and then the 135R. I have a feeling that 130 is going to go away. The 135 is the newest one, and that thing's quite a bit nicer. Anyway, you pick one of these power heads, and then you have all of these attachments available for it. Now, every one of these power heads is the exact same thing that they would use on one of their string trimmers. And what I carry is the 56, the 91, and the 131s. I do normally stock the KMA 135R, the new battery powered one, but I keep getting them 1 or 2 at a time and we keep selling through them really fast. So I'm going to use this as an example. I said these are the exact same thing as a string trimmer. They make a KM 131R. I'm just using that as my reference here. Somewhere in German, the KM is Kombi system, so to speak. So it is the exact same power head that they would use for the FS 131R, which is the fixed shaft string trimmer. So this is just a standalone string trimmer that they make with that same engine on it. Now these Kombi power heads will cost you almost as much as its string trimmer counterpart, and it doesn't do anything yet. You're just buying an engine. So again, using this 131R as an example, by the time you buy this thing and a string trimmer attachment in it, you're gonna have, I can't remember exactly, roughly 50 bucks more into it to get the thing up and running as a string trimmer. So like I mentioned earlier, if all you're looking for is a string trimmer and a leaf blower, then buy just a string trimmer and a leaf blower. You'll come out ahead that way. But the beauty of this is all the other options you have. For the residential user, the example I always use is if you buy the power head and the string trimmer initially and you're just using it as a string trimmer, and now 6 months down the road I decide I want an edger, I can buy a $120 edger attachment for this thing instead of having to buy a standalone edger that's going to cost me $400, $500. And back to my little board here, I don't know why they threw the pole pruner in the middle of this here, but they have an articulating hedge trimmer for it. There's a smaller one they call a power scythe that's actually submersible, so you can actually run it underwater if you're cutting cattails around your docks and things like that, which also articulates. They've got a fixed just hedge trimmer you can put in it. Of course, there's a pole pruner. And there's actually a 40-inch extension shaft you can get for that pole pruner, so you can get it up to a true pole pruner length. There's even a white carbon fiber one. There's the basic string trimmer attachments. I don't stock the curved one, I just carry the straight one. There's a leaf blower. That thing is unbelievable. If you put that on the bigger power head, it puts out almost double the air a handheld leaf blower will. They have this little, they call it a reciprocator. We've never ordered one, but it's supposed to work really nice around like embankments, docks, things like that too. There's a small cultivator if you're gardening. There's the rubber power sweep, they call it. Everybody in the face of the earth buys it to sling gravel out of their grass after plowing all winter and stuff. It'll throw the rocks out of your grass without tearing up the yard. There's a bristle brush, of course the brush cutter. If you're string trimming and brush cutting, just buy that thing and then you can buy a string line head. You can just switch them back and forth. You don't have to buy both attachments necessarily. There's a bed edger or a bed redefiner, straight shaft or curved shaft edger. I actually carry quite a bit of this. I've got both edger options, the articulating hedge trimmer, the articulating power scythe, the pole pruners. Here's both the extension shafts. There's a steel one and a carbon fiber one. The leaf blower, like I said, that blower is pretty impressive. It varies in output depending on which power head you match it up with. I've got a couple of the cultivators here. Here's the brush cutters. They just have a little guard around them, but those are the metal blade brush cutters, string trimmer attachments. So those rubber paddle sweeps have been a nightmare to get a hold of. I still have a bunch on order, but I've got one of the bristle brush attachments sitting right here, and I've got a couple of those cultivators. The nice thing about those 3 attachments is if you bought one of them, you can just interchange the business end on them. So like if you've bought this cultivator, you can buy just a bristle brush kit to throw on this because you've already got the shaft and the gear case there. Or if you bought like one of these bristle brushes, for example, and you decide later you want to buy those rubber paddles, you can get just the paddles. You don't have to buy a whole nother attachment. So I'm not going to go through all the specs on every individual component and everything, otherwise we'd be here for 3 hours. Just look at it as replacing your string trimmer with something that would be more versatile for you. You just have to pick a power head, which I mentioned earlier. We stock the 56, the 91, and the 131 in the gas-powered ones. There is a 111 that lands right in between the 91 and the 131. There's also a 94 that I would actually really like to stock, and we may start carrying here going forward. That one's almost identical in power to the 91, it's just lighter. The only difference in the 91, the 111, and the 131 is power, but they're built on the exact same platform, they're the exact same weight. If I remember correctly, the 91 is about 1.25 horsepower, and the 131 is just shy of 2. So when they're the exact same weight and there's that huge of a power jump on them, most people just buy the 131 anyway. I don't talk about the little 56 power head probably enough, but we don't sell a lot of them. It's the littlest power head they offer for these, so it's fine if all you're ever going to use is the string trimmer and the leaf blower, you know, the hedge trimmer, that kind of stuff. Anything more than that, anything ground engaging, the cultivator, the pole pruners, any of that kind of stuff, you're going to need more power, which is why we sell so many of the 91s and the 131s. It's usually those guys on the farm or on the acreage that are using this, and they've got more serious stuff to do than just trimming grass around the house or using the leaf blower. The leaf blower, by the way, is unbelievable though. Even with that smaller 56 power head, the volume is unreal. So a lot of people I know look down their noses at it a little bit because it looks funky. It's this big long torpedo looking thing. That the nice part about that it actually is though that you can use the shoulder harness and hold on to it with 2 hands, where if you're actually using just a handheld leaf blower for a long time, it wears you out a lot because you're trying to carry that thing with 1 hand all the time. But the bigger power head you put it on, the more airflow it gets, obviously, because you have more power behind it. Now this is just the gas engines I've touched on here. Of course, there's the 2 battery power heads too. I was kidding about these model numbers in second languages, but STIHL is a German company. Their little abbreviations before everything, I'm pretty sure all derived from German meanings of some sort. But the combi heads all start with a KM. So it'll be a KM91 or a KM131. Anything battery powered, they tack an A at the end of that part of it. So it's a KMA 130 or a KMA 135. The 130 was the first battery powered head they came out with for the combi setup. It didn't sell well. Granted, we sell more and more battery stuff every year, so it might have just been that it came out earlier, but it didn't draw a lot of attention. It required some extra components to run it. They tried to keep the weight down, so the battery itself doesn't mount in that power head. You have to wear it, whether that be like they have a little hip pack you can wear it on, and then there's a cord running from that you plug into the machine. The idea was keeping the weight down so you're not carrying it in your hands, but it was just kind of funky, and it got really expensive because the cheapest route to do that is that little hip pack with a cord on it. That thing alone was an extra $130 or $150, something like that. So by the time you buy the power head, that deal, a battery, a charger, it gets really expensive really fast. Now the 135 still does because you still have to buy a battery and a charger, but the thing is absolutely amazing. It is the most powerful of any of these power heads, and that includes the gas powered ones. Carries the battery on board. It still isn't that terribly heavy or anything, so I'm glad they kind of went to that. It made it simpler for the consumer. A lot of people already have a hard time understanding what all they need and why. So it simplified it, and if you're going to use a lot of this stuff, you know, the cost of the batteries and the chargers initially is expensive. So when you're just buying one machine, you know, it adds up really fast. But then the more and more you'd use this thing for, the more practical and affordable it actually becomes. So that's obviously true with even the gas-powered engines. That's the idea behind this and why I like it so much. You get all of these options and possibilities available at your fingertips and a lot less service. When it comes to this small handheld stuff, I talk about servicing this stuff a lot. The biggest issue with it is not mistreating it. It is not overusing it. It is the fact that it doesn't get used. That's why I like this combi system so much is, one, that one engine is getting ran more often. So you're keeping fresh gas run through it. You're using it to do your string trimming, your edging, and then you're going to put the blower on it and go use it to blow off the excess grass. And then in a couple months, you're using it to pole prune with, you're using it to trim your hedges, whatever the case is. People use that leaf blower in the winter a lot. It'll blow small snowfalls. You know, if you need to blow off the deck when there's an inch of snow or whatever, they work great for that. I love that. When that stuff sits, that's the biggest issue with it. And because of that, too, I don't have all these individual tools with individual engines that all need to be serviced. Whether they run or not, you still have to service stuff. You need to change a spark plug occasionally or change the air filter, whatever. If I have a standalone edger, a standalone hedge trimmer, a standalone string trimmer, leaf blower, all of those having their own engines becomes a lot more work and a lot more things to keep maintained and running. And a lot more likelihood of one of them just not starting one day. But it's not for everybody, like I had started off with earlier. The in-town guy that doesn't need all of these extras just probably isn't going to buy this thing. Or if you're the old guy like me, I already have my string trimmer, my leaf blower. I would love to have a combi system, but I've already acquired this stuff, and until it starts dying or whatever, I don't really have a good reason to buy a new one. If my string trimmer dies, I'll probably buy one at that point. But this is really more geared towards the new acreage owner, just the new homeowner in general. If you don't have any of this stuff, or you've now moved to an acreage where you're going to need way more tools to use, this is absolutely perfect, and you can always add more. You don't need to walk into the store, buy a power head and every single attachment you ever think you're going to use. You can always go back and buy more. They don't change these yearly. All these attachments have fit all the same machines for 2 decades or whatever they've made these things for now. And that's why, like in my case, if my string trimmer ever finally dies or whatever, I have a pretty old one, I'll probably buy one of these, because then going forward, I touched on this earlier, but up front initially to buy a power head and a string trimmer attachment, it would cost me a little bit more than just buying that same machine as a string trimmer. Let's say it's about $50 roughly. But then that leaves that door open, so later on down the road, then if I decide I want to buy the leaf blower, I can add that on. Or like I mentioned, the edger. If I decide I need an edger, I can buy an edger attachment for anywhere between $100 to $200 depending on which one you buy. Whereas a standalone, like I have a walk-behind edger sitting in our sales floor right now that costs $450, and that's a pretty reasonable residential one, but it's $450. I'm going to use it once a year. And using another example is STIHL, just like they make a fixed shaft string trimmer, they make a fixed shaft edger, and if you buy that thing, those are $300 to $400 to $500 depending on which power head you go with there as well. So again, you'd have that kind of money into it, and that is all it does. You can't do anything else with it. But that's why I kind of wanted to touch on this, guys. A lot of people aren't familiar with the combi system from STIHL, and I love it. I wish more people had it. Wish more people knew about it. So just kind of wanted to touch base with you guys. But as I always ask you guys, please leave me your questions or any other comments in the comments section below. I really do want to hear from you. Hit the subscribe button for me if you haven't subscribed already. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this in any fashion whatsoever. And until next time, I'll see you.